Hello, my name is Alina Shaltsova. I'm a New York immigration lawyer, and tonight we will be discussing the most interesting immigration news and also if asylum pending, something that is pending for millions of people in the United States, may save them from detention and removal proceedings in order of deportation. We're going to talk about this. And of course, we will be discussing other developments in our immigration life. So thank you very much for joining me. My name is Alina Shaltsova, immigration lawyer in New York, but I help people in all 50 states and overseas. Let me know where you're watching from, say hello, and of course, like and share this video and type up your questions, because in the end, I'm going to be reading back your questions and answering them live. So this is the opportunity to ask that question for free. I have 17 years of experience in the United States practicing as an immigration lawyer. Overall, almost 20 years of law legal experience. So I can answer a lot of different questions. Sometimes I can't, and then I'll tell you if I cannot. Thank you very much for joining. And of course, again, we will be discussing this very hot topic of detention, ICE enforcement, and if you have asylum pending, will that help you not to be subject of enforcement? So let's start. First, I'm going to cover some interesting findings. As we talk about detention and the very difficult situation with immigration in the United States, protests from coast to coast, various threats and promises by the government against the protesters, and those protesters sometimes they don't behave the way I approve, I'll be honest with you. As we discuss that, I want to bring something to your attention that according to poll by CBS News, 54% of Americans say they approve Trump's deportation policy, and 50% approve of how he is handling immigration. So it means that he is pretty popular. People who elected him, they still and probably will be backing him up in connection with his ICE enforcement policies. And this is very important information because it affects, to some extent, right, what's going to happen next if the government is going to back up from their promises of mass deportations, and how the courts potentially may view the situation, because in the United States, courts play essential part in forming the policies and enforcement. It's very important to understand that. So this is where we stand. It means that President Trump's policies and decisions are very popular. You cannot say that they're not, right? If more than half of people who were questioned responded that they support him, usually those polls, they represent the population of the United States as a whole on a smaller scale. So policies are very popular. We see that the government is not going to back down from the policy, from the promises of mass deportations, and it's very important to go back to the issue of we're going to be discussing as to how it may affect you. Lots of people in the United States filed for asylum, and they're anxious to know if those policies of mass deportations, detentions may affect them, right? So that's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention. And of course, I wanted to devote a little bit of time to travel ban. Many of you will not be affected. Why? Because you are already in the United States. The travel ban affects those people who were out of the United States or as of June 9th, and people who did not have valid visas, because people who did have visas, according to the regulation, Department of State's announcement, will be able to renew the visas. And also on my screen, I display the regulations and various exceptions to the ban. You know that last week, President Trump announced travel ban. I have a short video about that, mentioning the countries that are affected by the ban. Basically, what's going to happen that nationals of those countries will probably not be able to enter the United States if they're seeking only non-immigrant visas, like student visas, tourist visas, and most immigrant visas from some countries. But if you are somebody as a government employee or a NATO contractor, or you have an immediate relative, like a spouse in the United States, who would like to sponsor you for an immigrant visa, you will still be able to come to the United States. Interestingly enough, even non immigrants will be able to get and schedule visa appointments, but the visas are not going to be issued. I'm not sure if they're going to be refused to go into forever administrative processing or they will be denied. But according to the announcement, people will still be able to schedule those appointments. So that's about this travel ban. It is significant for non immigrants, okay, non immigrants, but there are significant exceptions for special immigrant visa applicants from Afghanistan, for example, immediate relatives from even banned countries, and government employees and people who are trying to enter the United States in national interests. All right, so that's about the travel ban. I know it's popular news, especially for people from Haiti. But again, if you are coming from Haiti because your family member, your spouse, is sponsoring you, or you are a US citizen and you are sponsoring your parent, they will be able to come. That's very important. And now let's talk about asylum pending enforcement. By now, you are probably aware as to what's going on in California, right? It's not easy to watch that footage. It's very stressful. The immigration court in California was shut down because of this protest. Where are we heading? What's going to happen? Well, I'm going to tell you that I believe ICE is not going to stop. They're not going to just say, okay, we're going to stop the enforcement. And you also need to know that lots of people now are receiving call-in letters, and ICE emails and text messages telling them to show up for an appointment and what to expect. Well, some of you who receive these messages may have asylum pending, and you think, well, I have something pending in court or with USCIS, I should be safe. Let me explain to you what asylum pending is. If you have asylum pending with USCIS, this is not a lawful non immigrant status that protects you from deportation or removal proceedings. It means that the government, if they desire to do so, may place you in removal proceedings. What type of the removal proceedings will depend on when you arrived and how. Typically, currently, if you entered the United States without inspection and it's been less than 2 years, you may be subjected to what's called expedited removal proceedings. Very fast administrative removal, where the only relief you may be asking for would be asylum. And what's bad about it from an immigrant's point of view is that you will not be able to get out of the detention, mandatory detention in this situation. Some people who were not detained previously may be detained. We've seen this. This decision came from the Board of Immigration Appeals explaining the mechanism behind that. Basically, the government would dismiss the regular removal proceedings against you, place you into deportation proceedings if they want to, and then into, administrative expedited removal proceedings if they want to under certain circumstances, and you will not be able to ask for bond. Thank you very much, guys, on TikTok for your gift. You will not be able to ask for bond. All right? Or people who entered through parole. They had CBP1 application, or maybe they didn't have it, but they had 212D5 paroles. That's how they entered the United States. And now what's going to happen? If the government terminates parole, they may, regardless of when you enter the United States, place you in these expedited removal proceedings with you subjecting you to mandatory detention without a possibility of bond. So your asylum pending will not help you to get out of the detention or out of the removal proceedings. Also, if you entered the United States and filed for asylum and your application was not prepared well, you only had I-589 forms that was poorly filled out, you didn't submit much evidence, you didn't submit your story, immigration judge may dismiss your case now as not legally sufficient to prove asylum, and then you again may even have an order of removal against you and be subjected to mandatory detention. So just because you have that work permit based on asylum pending, it doesn't mean that you are totally safe from enforcement. You need to understand that. What can you do to try to minimize the chances of enforcement? Well, number one, make sure your asylum claim is not just boilerprint language, that it actually is, you invested in substantial preparation of that form, your story and evidence. If you already filed something pending, make sure to update it. If it's in court, update it in court. If it's with USCIS, update it with USCIS. Now, if you're moving somewhere, make sure that you update your addresses, not only with court, if you're in court and USCIS, but also with ICE. I've seen people who forgot to let ICE know that they moved to a different jurisdiction. Now they're called for ICE appointments, and very often they will be detained as who violated that order of being released on their own recognizance. Why? Because under that order, if ICE released you, you had to inform them about you moving to a different place, and you didn't. So they see it as violation of the order, and you may be detained. It's very important to understand that, right? So make sure you update your address, update your application. Obviously, stay away from criminal trouble, because that will for sure subject you to mandatory detention. If I'm talking certain crimes related to theft, little things like shoplifting, imagine, may force you to be detained for the duration of your removal proceedings, and you may not ask for bond. So please be careful. What I see sometimes with immigrants is that they don't understand, especially for it is true in connection with new immigrants, they don't understand that moving certain items from department to department in a large store may be viewed as shoplifting by the guards, and a person may be charged with shoplifting. Even if the charges are dismissed later, you still, under current immigration laws, will be subject to mandatory detention. So keep that in mind. On my social media, I posted American Immigration Lawyers Association flyer talking about what to do before you go for that ICE appointment. It's extremely important that you get familiar with that flyer. It explains that you need to designate a person who's going to be communicating on your behalf. Leave signed G28 with an attorney that you would like to help you out in case of the enforcement, and make other arrangements just in case you are detained. Because if you are detained, a lawyer will be able to see you in person or remotely only if you have that G28 signed, especially remotely. So just keep that in mind. It's very, very important. Okay. And again, asylum pending is not a guarantee that you will not be placed in removal proceedings, even if you're just waiting for the interview. Please understand that. Make sure that your case is well prepared. Otherwise, again, you may end up with the order of removal just because your case was fully prepared. And now, if you guys have questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Hi, Ginger Mare. I overstayed my visa and got an NTA, filed asylum, but judge dismissed the case. Now married to a US citizen, can I qualify for a green card in current administration? Yes, you should be able to, because your removal proceedings previously were dismissed, even though without prejudice, most likely. But currently, you do not have an order of removal against you, and you should be able to file concurrently petition I-130 and adjustment of status. All right. All right. Let's see. Just because you overstayed, by the way, you're not prohibited from receiving green card based on marriage. The law specifically excuses you. The law did not change, right? In this situation, so you should file for your green card right away. High success 25. Will all the immigration protests lead to an immigration reform for people who are here with no papers? It's a hard question for me to answer. It depends on the government whether or not they are open to listening the other side. But I'm going to tell you, this particular administration will not be negotiating with people who are burning cars. Okay, so peaceful protest is fine. If people are burning cars and looting stores, they're not gonna. It just has a very bad negative effect on the rest of the immigrants. We do not want that. I don't think we want to be seen as people who are violating the laws, fighting for our rights, right? So it's very important to understand that peaceful protest, 100% fine. Looting, closing down highways, assaulting police officers, not good. Not good. Nobody because of that is going to support immigration reform coming from that crowd, right? Demands for immigration reform. There is also a lot of questions for Democratic leaders, guys. Now they step out and say that this administration is overstepping, this and that. Perhaps, yes, absolutely. But where were they for the past 20 years? Nobody really lobbied seriously for immigration reform. So it feels to me that a lot of those accusations are done again for political gain rather than helping people. And it's very upsetting. Again, better now than never. Please have a proposal drafted. We already have tons of drafts within the past 20 years that any congressman may use to propose their version of this or that bill. I'm yet to see anything substantial to be proposed. There was one guy who proposed this bill. He said we don't have to settle. There is money in it for border security, but also he's proposing status for DACA people. If you recall, I covered that. I think nothing happened with this, you know, but obviously we really need to have a much more serious movement in that direction. Serious leaders proposing serious bills and start discussing them rather than just pointing fingers and saying this person is not behaving right or that person is not behaving right. For a person who's been in the United States for decades, paid taxes, has family ties, all this political game doesn't mean anything. You need action, right? You need laws. You need something to file for, to be safe, to know that your future as you're getting older is secure in the United States, that you will be able to get that social security, little payments due to tremendous tax contributions, that you will be able to see your children and your grandchildren. Where is all that? I do not know where is it? Where? It's non-existent. So I think that's what we need to focus on, not smashing the windows of innocent businesses, but really putting pressure on leaders who were elected to do the right thing, right? That's what we want. They were elected, they are not doing their job. All right. Let's see what questions we have. Hi, AZ. How about approved I-730 for Afghan national? You guys will be fine. In the proclamation, in the regulations, there is a special exception for people who are receiving this derivative refugee asylee status. Your family members should be able to come to the United States. Okay. Hi, Coco. Thank you very much for your gift. If you get your EAD pending, based on asylum, is it advisable to go for your social security if you overstayed visa? Yeah, absolutely. So listen, you got your work permit, go and get social security so you'll be able to work legally. Absolutely, don't worry. You should be okay. All right. All right, all right. Let's see what we have. Um, Why is it too long to get a work permit for I-130 petition? I-130 petition by itself does not give you a work permit. You have to file Form I-45 with that. And honestly, I did not see any delays. If a spouse who's a US citizen filed I-130 for you, I've seen very fast action so far. We've been getting those work permits approved within like 60 days. It's the fastest in history. So not sure what happened in your case, okay? Let's see. Thank you very much, King, for your gift and following. Hi, the MRT. With current administration, is it possible to terminate your asylum, affirmative asylum? Sure. But if you terminate your asylum that's pending before asylum office and you don't have any other status, they will probably issue notice to appear. You can always withdraw your asylum case, but then chances are you will not be able to renew. You will not be able to claim, that 1 year filing deadline, get out of the 1 year filing deadline issue if you would like to renew your asylum, file again. So I wouldn't typically recommend withdrawing anything until you secure another status. Hi, crazy boy, what's your question? Let's see. Hi, Angie. USCIS called my mom for an interview. What to do? Well, if she does not want to lose the chance for the benefit she filed for, she will have to appear for that interview. Hire an attorney, prepare, and go. That's what the right thing to do. If you believe that she doesn't qualify for the benefit, then why she filed for something? That's a totally different issue. But hopefully, the lawyer who was helping you guys reviewed the situation. If she has a good chance of approval, then don't lose that chance. All right? Are we talking about US immigration law or Russian immigration law? I don't know. Anything Russian here? I'm not sure. USCIS called, okay. Let's see. Hijack VAWA approved. Court case was recalendared in October. I-45 administratively closed with USCIS. What options do I have? Well, right. So if your case is pending in court, you should not have filed I-45 unless you're an arriving alien with USCIS. So what you should do is you should file probably your I-45 with a judge. So the judge will be able to decide your case. That's what you should do. And talk to your lawyer. What's the plan, right? What is the plan? Why did they file I-45 with USCIS when it couldn't have been approved? All right. When will we send the documents for changing master hearing to last hearing? How many times they take? When we send the documents for changing master hearing to last hearing. All right, so someone sent a motion on your behalf asking for the case to be scheduled for an individual hearing to avoid master hearing. How long the judge will take to approve that? That's probably the question. It depends. Some judges are very good and they're on top of those motions, and within 30 days, you're going to get your answers. Some judges never rule on the motions you file. All right? And there is nothing much you can do about that. If you're going to annoy the judge with motions to expedite decision on the motion filed, they will just get upset and they will deny it. Trust me, just trust me. So you have to wait for the decision. And unfortunately, you will not know when that will be. All right? Hi, Kutapaya. I'm on a TN visa. Can I travel outside of the United States? Yes, but you are risking not being able to enter the United States. Every time you leave the United States, even if you have a valid visa, valid status, you assume the risk that you may not be able to enter. Especially it's true for TN visas. Sometimes you meet that CBP officer who is going to have a different view on your qualifications for TN visa. I've seen that, where a person would travel multiple times, worked for the same employer in the same occupation, and everything was fine. And then all of a sudden they denied entry and issued expedited removal because the officer all of a sudden says, oh, no, no, previous people made a mistake. Your occupation doesn't meet the TN qualifications. So just keep that in mind. If you're fine with at risk, you can travel, right? Hi, Jessica. Will you be able to pass through the United States if you just got the visa, but your passport is from a country banned from a banned country? Well, if you got the visa and it was valid as of, I think, June 9th, they said 2025, you should be able to use that visa. Will you be denied entry? They don't have anything in regulations saying that you 100% will be denied entry. In fact, they say that you're subject to an exception. But what happens at the border is controlled by the CBP offices. Just because you have a visa, even if you're not from a banned country, that visa does not guarantee your admission into the United States. Okay? Doesn't guarantee that. So if you qualify for the visa, you didn't commit fraud, if CBP officer is asking you questions and they are satisfied with your answers, you should be able to enter the United States. If independently from that proclamation they find that you don't qualify for the visa you received, they will deny entry, right? Hi, Pierre John. Good evening. I just realized I made a mistake on I-45 application. Should I wait for RFE, correct it at interview, or should I do it proactively? Well, if it's depending on the mistake, if it's typographical error, you can send a service request to USCIS asking for the mistake to be corrected, right? What is the reason for detaining someone who already did a credible fear interview and had a positive determination based on political opinion and applied for asylum and has no criminal record? Um, it can be just that they're subject to mandatory detention now, expedited removal proceedings. In fact, it is happening to people who were questioned at the time when they were trying to enter the United States. They passed the credible fear interview, were placed in regular removal proceedings. Now they show up to court. The court dismisses the regular removal proceedings and they're back in expedited removal. So it just changed policies, guys. Administration changed. So changed times. All right? That's what happened. All right. You're welcome. Hi. Kutapaya, my youngest child is American citizen. Will we be allowed to reentry again? I'm on TN visa. You have a great chance of being denied because you know your kid is an American citizen. As I said, I wouldn't travel if I were you. Okay, there is a great risk of not being able to come back. When will you be allowed to re-enter if the entry is denied? It depends on how the paperwork is done at the border. If at the border they issue against you an order of expedited removal, then you will be banned for 5 years. Okay? All right, let's take some questions from TikTok. Let's see. What about re-entering the United States with 10-year green card? Hi, Sammy. If you haven't stayed out of the United States for more than 6 months and don't have any criminal issues and you do not have any fraud in your record, then you should be okay to travel. All right? Are they still approving the I-131 in case of VAWA? Not if initially the person did not have legal entry. They stopped doing it now due to massive fraud that was uncovered in New York. Hi, royalty family. My sister and her family have pending asylum, but one of our brothers is a United States citizen. Will it help? It has no effect typically on asylum case. Just because you have a US relative doesn't increase or decrease your chances for asylum. All right. that relative may submit I-130 form for you as a sibling, but it takes 12 years before your family members will be able to use it if it's an F4 category. And also, they will not be able to use it in the United States unless the law changes. So they will have to travel out of the United States and seek visa overseas. But guess where? In their home country. So I always recommend people to file those petitions just in case, but chances of them actually using them will be small unless the family gets deported and then they have to wait for their turn to come back to the United States from overseas. Okay. I-730 people are not banned. They are on the exception. Okay, on the exception. If you're doing adjustment of status 730 already approved, can you do domestic flight? You would like to fly domestically because you filed for adjustment of status based on approved I-130? Sure, you can fly domestically. But if you don't have status in the United States and CBP somehow gets hold of you, you still may be placed in removal proceedings. That's what we discussed at the beginning of this video. Pending thing like adjustment of status, asylum, does not prevent you from being placed in removal proceedings. Chances are you're going to get out of the removal proceedings if they place you in one, but do you really want to play this game? I wouldn't. So just keep this in mind. Right now, it's a very hot time. Immigration people, they have quotas to arrest 3,000 people. That's what's reported by the media. So I think they're going to be grabbing anybody they can. All right. Hi, Mr. Patel. I done one-time interview. USCIS give me 2 interviews. All right. What is it all about? Tell me more about your situation. My mom has her biometric appointment June 16. Should she be afraid of being detained by ICE? To date, I have not heard of anyone who's been detained just because they showed up for biometrics appointment. If you guys know anyone credible, don't spread rumors or lies. But if you know, let me know. I have not heard of anyone who's been detained just because they showed up for biometrics. All right? Let's see. What questions we have? Hi, P.A. John. P.A. John. I answered no to the question of whether I had ever been detained or arrested. I said no, but in fact, I was detained twice in my home country, which was the reason I applied for asylum. Ouch, that's an important thing. Why? Because when there is a discrepancy of that sort, the government will be suspicious now about your asylum application, and that's going to be a problem. So, absolutely try to file that correction right away and prepare for interview where you will have to explain yourself why the mistake was made. Look, sometimes there is a mistake is made, right? If you have paperwork proving that you were detained or arrested, then you should be fine, right? See if you have the paperwork. It will be very important for you to have that. Hi, Veronica. I went to my check-in today with my children. ICE didn't detain me, but did give me a food monitor until my T visa gets approved. What do you think about all this? I have a final order of removal. Hi, Veronica. That became a common practice that you are being placed in what's called ISAP program, intense supervision program. It's a better alternative than being detained. Wouldn't you agree? But yes, they started doing that they started issuing those bracelets. Okay. Hi, royalty family. How about showing up in USCIS for interview? Is there a possibility of being detained? Yes, there is always a possibility of being detained. Better question, if they detain you, will you be able to get out? Will you qualify for bond? But honestly, currently, anybody who is dealing with immigration has to be prepared for a possibility of being detained. That's just the reality. Can you predict it before visa? If I could predict it before visa, I'd be I'd be playing lottery, guys. I wouldn't be doing all this, okay? If I had this gift of prediction as to what's gonna happen for sure, I will just pick those numbers. What is it? Five, six numbers, long time ago. I have no idea what's gonna happen in that four category. I can only tell you that it will be a very long wait because what happens is that USCIS slowed down in certain areas and certain categories, and it's going to take a long time for them to restart to speed up. So EB4 is going to take a long time. I can tell you that. All right. Hi, Gore. Is there a freeze on I-45 applications from people who came on parole? What specific countries are in question? Igor, there were all countries, there was a freeze, but the federal judge lifted it about 2 weeks ago. Now, did USCIS follow the federal judge ruling? I don't know, but I know that it was lifted. Okay. All right. Let's see if we have more questions. What precautions are necessary before someone go for the interview? On my social media, as I mentioned in this video before, my Instagram, my TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, I posted the flyer by American Immigration Lawyers Association, and it's pretty good, guys. It actually gives you a plan, action plan, as to what to do before you go for that appointment. So please just visit social media, New York Immigration Lawyer. That's my nickname on Facebook, Immigration Lawyer and Why on Instagram. You see me here. If you ask, please follow this page on TikTok, and then you go to my posts and you will see what you need to do, how to prepare your family members, who to give what information, and things like that. Okay. All right. Can permanent residents with no criminal record be at risk of being picked up by ICE? Only in very specific situations. If you have a green card, ICE may pick you up still, but they have to have a reason to do that. It will be maybe suspicious, a reasonable, probably it's going to be like what's called a probable cause that you committed fraud and your green card is invalid. And it has to be pretty serious evidence that they have to have, right? Or without the fraud that you obtained your green card wrongfully. Sometimes it happens. So no fault of your own. I have not seen such arrests yet. Because we're talking about you don't have a criminal record, but they're picking you up and you're a green card holder. I haven't seen such arrests yet, but technically speaking, they may happen. All right. Hi, Maria. Can you explain if the immigration reopened a removal proceedings case when the person already applied for a U visa, have the bona fide letter, and waiting for work permit? You would like to know what's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is that if the judge reopens your case after the motion filed by the government, then they will have to determine what they would like to do with you. They may give you time for the U visa to be approved, but you need to know that they don't have to. So you better have a very good lawyer who's going to argue on your behalf as to why the court has to give you time and not schedule your case for an individual hearing so that you can remain in the United States while your visa is being decided. All right? That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Now, let me answer a couple of more questions, guys, before I am going to be done tonight. Hi, Kali. I have attended my green card interview months ago. Until now, there is no response from USCIS. It happens sometimes that USCIS is going to take more time than usual to make a decision on your case. I wouldn't really worry. Really, 30 days is not a long time for them at all. All right. Maybe they ordered some background check and are waiting for the results. Hopefully, you're going to get your green card soon. Hi, Josie. Is asylum-based I-45 paused, or is some still receiving it? To my knowledge, they are still on pause. The cases of people who won asylum and filed for their green cards. That pause is still in effect. We just spoke about a different situation about people who entered the United States on parole. That pause was lifted, was supposed to be lifted per judge's order. Okay? So that's what happened with those people. Guys, if you need to have a personal consultation with me, please reach out to my office 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and they will help you to choose a consultation that fits your needs, the length of the consultation and the mode. I have both in-person and remote consultations, and they come at a different cost. So reach out and we're going to sit down and talk about different possibilities, different things which you need to do for your case, because each case is going to be different. All right. You have to understand that here I'm just sharing little tips as to how to, I think, based on the 3 lines that you're sharing with me, approach this or that situation. Right. Can the detained permanent residents, right? So, as I said, they may. You have to know something. They may even detain, in certain circumstances, U.S. citizens, okay? And sometimes it even will be legal. If they have to verify your status and they have, again, reasonable suspicion that you may not have status and you don't have any documents on you, or at a checkpoint within 100-mile radius at the border, for example, they're allowed to install the checkpoints in. So there are certain situations when the government will be allowed to detain even documented people. The good news is that not for long, usually, until they verify your status. And if you did have proof of your status and you gave it to them and they unreasonably rejected it, then you can sue them. That's the difference. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining tonight. I am very happy that you are proactively seeking solutions for your immigration cases because it's very important. I meet sometimes people who sit on their cases for 10 years, don't do anything, and then they're surprised when they're called for the asylum interview and they have nothing, absolutely nothing. You ask them, oh, have you been politically active all this time? And they're like, no, I haven't. You won't be able to win your case, most likely, unless you show that somehow you still qualify for asylum 10 years later. Just keep that in mind. You need to be prepared. You need to have action plan. Again, check those tips from American Immigration Lawyers Association. If you need a consultation, reach out. I'll be very happy to help you out to see what will be the best in your situation, because each situation is different, right? Some slight variation in your paperwork may have a very different effect and result from your friend's case, who had the situation resolved this or that way. Just keep that in mind. We all are different. Well, thank you very much, guys, and please follow, like, share this video. Check out materials I post on my website, shopsolver.com, videos I post on my social media, and I hope to see you soon.